Beautiful. All right, so let's get started here. As I said, my name is Mitch, and I am here to talk to you about advocacy. Can everyone see the slides and presentation? I'm going to assume a yes. All right, so thank you for joining me here for Building the Future of Open Advocacy Partnerships and Data in Colorado Higher Ed. I've spent the last few years balancing the practical realities of OER work with the long-term vision of transforming higher ed into something more equitable, collaborative, and sustainable. Today, we're going to explore advocacy, partnerships, and data in connection to sustaining Colorado's statewide OER movement. This isn't just a conversation about open textbooks. It's about systemic cultural change, how we communicate, collaborate, and how we make our work more visible. So, our objectives of the day is, of course, I'm always going to take a little bit of time to celebrate what we've done so far. So I am a reference and OER librarian for Arapahoe Community College, but I'm also a council member for the State OER Council. And with that, we are the ones who review grants every year and then approve the different work that's going on throughout the state. Next, I do want to strengthen our advocacy across institutions. That's the whole goal of the webinar today. And we're going to start with some basics, some foundational information, but we're also going to push for more. I'm always going to push for more. I'm always going to say, how can we work together? How can we work individually? How can we work on every single level, whether it's around our dinner table, at our institution, or on a statewide or national level? And then I want to strategize with you for long-term sustainability. So the bigger the movement, the more we have, the more leverage we have for sustainability, for actually making those asks in the long term. So, like I said, we're going to start with some basics, but why advocacy matters. Advocacy, by definition, is action that influences change. We know, hands down, that OER improves access, improves equity, and improves innovation. And every single advocate, as I just mentioned, is going to strengthen our cause. And so, while we can continue to perform the OER work itself, the creation of materials, the advocacy is exceptionally important because as of right now, we have grant funding in our Colorado state to support this work, but it is coming up next year in the legislature, or fingers crossed it'll come up again, as a bill that we need to have approved. And that only happens through advocacy. That happens through people just like you, me, and everyone else at these different institutions, whether 2-year, 4-year, across Colorado, saying it matters, and we want more funding. There's more work to be done. And so that's where we're talking about agency, the ability to influence change. Every course we design, every conversation with a faculty member, every budget meeting where you bring up OER, that's advocacy in action. OER just doesn't save students money. It continues to improve equity, representation, and innovation. When we reduce cost barriers, we're saying to every student, you belong here. And that's powerful, honestly. So, Colorado's open movement. Let's just talk a little bit about what we've done so far. Colorado is one of the leaders in this country because we've built the movement collaboratively and from grassroots. In just roughly 7 years, the CDHE's OER grant program has supported hundreds of faculty, funded ZTC pathways across our community colleges, our 4-year colleges in the state, and saved students over just shy of 60 million at this point, dollars. So why do those numbers matter? They matter because what's more inspiring are the stories behind them. Students enrolling in courses knowing they won't face a $300 textbook bill. Faculty reclaiming creative control over their teaching, academic freedom. Institutions aligning affordability with academic freedom. So I pose this question to you. What keeps you motivated to advocate for open resources, open pedagogy, open educational resources? And, oh, looks like we might have some chats here. Students, the cost saving to students, students saving money. I love that because at the very beginning of the day, or at the end of the day, however you want to look at it, we are still all putting students first, student-centered thinking. I love that our motivation is students. The open education community is global and passionate. Engaging with others through OER networks, conferences, and online groups can provide a real sense of belonging and inspiration. Omagin, I 100% agree. I think I found some of the most friendly groups I've ever been a part of in the OER world. Everybody is here to help. And strangely enough, everyone is continually asking how they can help more. So, foundations of advocacy. Change doesn't happen all at once, it happens in layers. It exists on multiple levels. So we have self and individual advocacy, and then we have systemic advocacy. At the self level, we advocate by continuing to learn. We advocate by continuing to do the work, showing up at webinars just like this. At the individual level, though, we support colleagues as they adopt or adapt, remix materials. And at the systems level, this is where we influence institutional policy, funding, and culture. I want to pause and really think about that for a moment, because as we talk about sustainability, advocacy has direct ties to sustainability. If we aren't advocating for more money or even just secure money for this work to happen, is our advocacy achieving its goal? And there are direct and more grassroots approaches. If you look at the OER context, there is what started as a grassroots approach that's really morphed and evolved into a direct approach at higher and higher levels. Every conversation counts. If you've ever met Chelsea, Miss Chelsea Boley, Director of the Open Educational Resources at CDHE, she will tell you a lovely story of how this began, how this started as a conversation at someone's dinner table. There just happened to be a legislator there, and it grew from there. So even if every conversation isn't easy, isn't an automatic yes, isn't a full buy-in, every conversation you have about OER keeps it in people's minds and keeps it in people's mouths. So, building an advocacy team. I am actually very, very collaborative. I'm very much about everyone feeling part of the group, but also everyone about building a team that makes sense. I have found that I often am in a room full of cheerleaders, but no coach. And that's not an insult. That's not a dig. That is me saying, we have a lot of people who want to save students money, and I need those cheerleaders. We need those cheerleaders in the room. We need them at every moment in advocacy, just talking about the work and cheering on the work. But an advocacy team requires a few more people than just the cheerleader. We need a leader. Who's going to lead the team? Who's going to set the goals? How are we going to move forward? What are the practical changes that we want to achieve? We need the persuader. Who do we send into the room with people who maybe aren't on team or maybe not even on board with OER? Who is really good with people? And that's both talking up institutionally and to people, peers, everyone around them. Who has that persuasive nature? Who's their data guru? Who's the person who's going to actually collect the numbers, crunch them, and make sense of them? Show people qualitative information as to how this is important, why it's important, so that we can actually apply it to whoever's opposing anything. The analyst and the data guru, they kind of work hand in hand. These are more behind the scenes people. They don't always want to be in front of people, but they believe in the work. They believe in the work and they have a specific set of skills that allows them to make sense of very complex, very large sets of data. So these people are crucial in your team because they're the ones who start to build that messaging. And then that goes through to your organizer, who is putting people in different rooms around different places on campus, on a state level, on a national level. We need those people who are literally organizing, oh, this person will be here at this moment. I don't think it was any surprise to anyone that there were Colorado legislators at the OER conference. And that was due to a very, very exceptional organizer, someone who knew that they just needed to get some of the leaders in front of some of the persuaders. So, with that said, I want you to really stop, really think, who is on this team with me? Am I on this team alone right now? And that's okay. But then what role am I playing? And what roles do I need to look for? Maybe I need to go recruit some team members. Maybe they're at my institution, maybe they're at other institutions. We have people representing very large and very small campuses across the state. So once you have your team together, you need to know your audience. A lot of you, I feel like, might have been just at the Colorado, or not the Colorado, the Open Ed conference, the nationwide conference here in Denver just last week. We had a very, very opportune time to meet allies, to meet beneficiaries. There were students at the conference. We got to meet legislators. Some of us. And so the one thing we didn't get to meet is anybody in opposition, which makes sense. If we're at an OER conference, why would they come and say, no, I don't believe in this? But if we know our audience, we know how to change our messaging. Our opposition knows that you can't just use the same old messaging of it saves students money. It helps with retention. We need to make sure that it aligns with whoever is opposing it. Our audience, we need to make sure our messaging aligns with their concerns, but also something that benefits them. And that's going to play a huge, huge role because successful advocacy depends on understanding the entire ecosystem you're working in. In every conversation, you ask, who are my beneficiaries? Who are my allies? Who are my decision makers? And yes, who are my opposition? Beneficiaries can be people like students and faculty. Allies might be department chairs or accessibility coordinators. Decision makers, we know who these are. Deans, provosts, state level leaders. The opposition doesn't mean they're against you. They just might not see OER as a priority yet, or they might not see the benefits yet. So when we frame OER around their goals, again, student success, retention, innovation, we meet people where they are, not where we want them to be. And I believe Dr. Kim, and I'm forgetting her last name, one of the keynote speakers last week at the Open Ed conference really said a lot about meeting. We don't get to choose who we are advocating to. We don't get to choose where they're at, but we can meet them where we're at and we can try to make it a benefit to them. So, framing your message. It's very simple at first, and we can thank Spark for this. It's problem, solution, goal, strategy, tactics. Every message needs to connect to an action. Advocacy messaging is part art, part strategy. So that Spark model, as we see here, the problem could be students can't afford required materials, so the solution is expand OER in high enrollment courses. The goal, though, is to reduce drop, fail, and withdrawal rates, DFW rates, for those of you who know. And the strategy is to secure faculty release time. So the tactic is to submit a proposal to a dean by a specific time. Every advocacy message should connect directly to an action. So we have a problem, we have a solution, we have a goal, we even have a strategy and tactics. That tactic needs to have an action. What are we going to do about the problem? So this leads right into how we ask for things. So whether it's a dean or a provost or someone who is benefiting from a grant or who's instituting a grant, all these different things. When it's time to make your ask, clarity is everything. Hook your listener with a relatable fact or a story. This is where the narrative comes in. Find something that can hook your listener. Define the problem in their terms, not in your terms. That means meet them where they are at, not where you're at. Then you offer a clear solution and end with one actionable request. Here's your problem on your terms. Here's a solution I found for your problem, and this is what I need from you. It's that simple. We tailor it to our audience, like we've already know your audience. For policymakers, we emphasize maybe the statewide return on investment. For faculty, we focus on the pedagogical and academic freedom. And for students, we talk about access, inclusion, and yes, it's going to save you money. So not everybody cares about the same thing. Not everyone thinks the same thing is the problem. And not everyone thinks the same solution is for them. We just have to frame it so they all see OER as the solution. Always make it easy for your audience to say yes. Remove friction and follow up promptly when you get a yes. So if you get someone who's actually on board, make it easy. You take care of everything. You lean on that organizer on your team, your OER team, and all of a sudden they take the yes and they run with the yes. So heartstrings and purse strings. Melanie Sidwell with Witchy is to thank for this this information, but it made perfect sense to me. When we're developing those messages, we need to base it by audience, but we also need to not just ask for an emotional connection, but also we need that emotional connection in order to connect to the financial connection, the purse strings. So we have those heartwarming narratives. We combine the emotion and the the quantitative evidence. The numbers that for Colorado, you've given us $6 million, $5 million. I'm always hazy with the details. You've given us $5 million, we'll say, and we've given you 60 million in return. There's your ROI. But here is a heartwarming story about students who aren't able to complete, retain, and here's how we've affected students' lives. Students' stories always have a measurable impact because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what institution we're at, they are going for enrollment. Enrollment is what keeps the college alive, keeps all of our jobs. But these student stories are what really are going to change things for pretty much every audience member as long as it's situated appropriately. So we inspire and we inform. Stories alone and data alone doesn't change hearts or budgets. We need both. So we just need to start with heartstrings so we can move to purse strings. And that's where I want to take what Melanie Sidwell taught us and what Spark has taught us about framework, and I want him to bring it together. Let's go ahead here and think about this is how we have a plan. This is how we have an ask. And this right here is how we brand those messages. So, cultivating partnerships, we think of stakeholders versus partners. They are not always the same. Here, no OER effort succeeds in isolation. I think we all know that at this point. Stakeholders care and partners collaborate. A partner invests their time and reputation in shared outcomes. Partnerships turn projects into ecosystems. So what started as a small little grant here at ACC back in 2018 now has an entire committee, an entire ecosystem, an entire group of people committed to sustaining the work that is happening on the campus across the campus. So a healthy partnership culture is what keeps Colorado's OER landscape alive long after the grant cycles end, if they end. And say it with me now, I hope they do not. But this mutual benefit, this collaboration, all of this is what breeds sustainability. And this is what our stakeholders care about. So just some highlights. We have the Open CU initiative, which is across the state on CU campuses. We have the FLCCU Anschutz Nursing Z degree, which is currently in the works. And we have the ACC ECE Z degree in the works, early childhood education. This is where people who seemingly maybe don't have a lot in common do. Anschutz and Fort Lewis College, far apart, but shared goals. And now we have a nursing Z degree that will slowly find its way throughout all the different OER networks. When our early childhood education department decided they wanted to go for a full Z degree, across the state, the director of the department already was asking who has things, but also who's interested in this, because the second that it's complete, every class that gets completed, she feeds it right back out into the world, so that not only is our program a Z degree, but across is a Z degree. So we can say that Colorado excels at partnerships because we practice what we preach. All of these things happen because we work together. Each project reinforces a truth. Collaboration isn't optional. It's our competitive advantage in this state. And when it comes to advocacy, it is the same thing. So, Open CU initiative, that's great. CU also needs an open advocacy initiative, and we need to come together and push that forward. Same with ACC and our consortial system for all the community colleges. All of these different people, we all care. We need to come together though. So we come together and we need data. We need actual numbers. We need actual stories. Now, stories that are backed by numbers, now those to me are the most powerful advocacy tools. Because what that means is that we've taken something about an individual person, but we can back their experience by large, comprehensive data. We have to connect all these metrics to a mission. Data tells the story behind the story. It validates what we feel intuitively, that open education improves learning persistence and equity. We know this. At ACC, we use data to connect OER adoption to measurable outcomes like retention, student satisfaction, and institutional savings. Data alone can't tell this story, but the best advocacy blends both metrics with meaning. So if I set an actual metric on data and retention, student success, things of this nature, but then provide the meaning, actual narrative, this is a strong message. This is how we move forward with advocacy. So some of the things we did at ACC is we've blended both qualitative and quantitative measures through micro surveys and a return on investment analysis. So we are asking faculty, we are asking students, and we're not just asking, hey, how much did you love your OER? That's not really helpful. We asked them, how was course content? How did they feel about this in comparison to other classes? We asked students, would you have been more successful? Do you think you would have been just as successful, the same successful if you'd taken this class with for-cost textbooks? Now, I am not being perfectly eloquent on the questions, but the whole point was to align results with equity goals and advocacy for OER. So this means that we want our data strategy to align with what we measure with what we value altogether. When we did the micro surveying, it provides immediate feedback, while the ROI analysis speaks to administrators. When both data types align, we can tell the full story. Financial, academic, and emotional return on investment, right there. This is about amplifying our advocacy. It gives your message precision. When we use data appropriately, our message becomes sharper, more direct, more impactful. We want to always talk about equity, but I also know that some of us may work at institutions where that is not an option anymore, and I understand that. But there are still ways to look for equity in data analysis. Inclusive data design inherently will build equity in, but we might call it successful data design. We might call it a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, it represents diverse learners. It contextualizes the outcomes. So equity is, to me, the heartbeat of open education. So are we asking whose data is missing? Are your results inclusive? If your OER adoption metrics exclude part-time or non-traditional students, you're only seeing half the picture. Incorporate qualitative reflections and disaggregate by demographics when possible. By analyzing data through an equity lens, we ensure open education truly serves everyone. And I think that right there is one of our largest strengths when it comes to advocacy, whether you're able to use the terms DEI or not in your institution or in your state. At the end of the day, the more students we serve, the better it is for enrollment. And that I want you to take back to your audience. That audience who says, we don't need to be equitable, we don't need to be inclusive. And you go, it's not about that, it's about enrollment numbers. Changing the message to meet the audience. This is what this person cares about. And while I wish I could meet them on a DEI equal playing field, I cannot, which means I need to show them that this has value, whether they think it does or not. How does it make sense to them? How does it have value to them? So I would love to take a moment here and have us reflect. Who's actually on your advocacy team right now? What is your plan right now? And what might your plan look like in 5 years? What is your current landscape? And please feel free if you are open to it in responding out. I would love to hear people. anytime we start to create an advocacy plan, and by the way, if that wasn't clear at the beginning of my presentation, all advocacy starts with a plan. Conversation, yes, but we need to have a plan. That's why those different members of the team make so much sense and are so important. If we don't have a plan, we could end up with a team full of cheerleaders, but no leaders.
Hi, Mitch. I'm from Oklahoma, and I'm new here. I've had a long history in higher ed, and I've worked on as a learning design
Mhm,
instructional designer. I've been a member of faculty, and I think there is a lot of people who want to embrace OER.
mhm,
I think on like just a general level, there are champions of it, right? I
mhm,
think the some of the struggles that we are finding um, is just the what it takes to create and build that, and then who we're partnering with to create those resources that are um, really valuable to the student learning. It's just what it takes for those experts in the room to build those out and to launch those. And where there seems to be like a miss, at least what I found in my situation, um, was there was a lack of support from, not that there wasn't a want to support the faculty in these pursuits. It just seemed to be that it always had to be voluntary, right? There was just not a lot of either release time, or even the colleagues, like everyone was just overextended, right? And
mhm.
then those that actually might have been, well, I'm going to do it anyways, just what they had to pour into it. um, have an instructional designers to help them realize it in a digital world, right? Also proved to be a little bit of a complication. So they had like the text and the words and all the things that subject matter experts naturally often have. They just didn't know how to translate that into the digital world, right? So well. So I don't know, like you're asking some really good questions here with what motivates advocacy. And I just think sometimes um, the breakdown is on a level that just feels like it's so far beyond people's control that they really don't know what next step to take to make this hope wish dream a true reality.
I thank you. I feel like you're a plant, Kristen, because I love this story. And on top of it, I want us to really think. So I am not going to discount anything you said because discounting it wouldn't be telling a truthful, accurate picture of how this work happens at times. And so what I'm actually pointing to for the advocacy to lead to sustainability, lots of buzzwords, but let's actually get down to the practical because I'm a practical guy. So I actually would say in order for your OER work to start, that starts with an advocacy plan from your top down. Who's your provost? Who's your president? Things of that nature. Get them fully on board. And does that mean maybe for your strategic plan for the college, for the campus, making sure OER is a part of it? Once we achieve that advocacy goal, then we start working on what does release time look like? Do you have a tenure process? Do you have a promotion process? Does that include OER work? How can we start building these things in? And we need to make it so that the administration, well, let's face it, I'm going to assume nobody has a ton of money right now. But how can we show that this work is actually has the largest return on investment and they don't have to actually invest all this money in the college? They just have to invest maybe time. Maybe they have to invest policy changes. Maybe that's where they invest at the top level. And maybe, like you said, those release times, those those different opportunities we get to build resources, that's maybe where the advocacy starts, and that's where the ask is too. And it's not, I want to be very clear and careful here because it's easy for us, I think, to sit in a large room and advocate and say, well, we don't get paid enough. We're not getting the release time for this, so we're not going to do it if we don't get this. But truly effective advocacy is setting meetings, having your OER team, and actually sitting in rooms where those policymakers can stop and think, and you can position the message to them. Not in large campus-wide meetings, not in these happen in quiet, these are quiet conversations, and we start there. I think that having all this happen overnight, not a realistic approach. But I think if you create that ladder, that scaffolding of I have to start at the beginning, even though I know people are exhausted and they're like, I want to make the stuff now. I'm like, but I have to start with the foundation first in order to get somewhere so people can make things. Does that
Very
make sense?
good. Yeah, it's very helpful. I know that there was a general education course, it was a health course. Thousands of students were enrolled in that, and all the faculty, and I happen to be one of the members of faculty teaching the course as well, like between of all of our different passions and level of expertise, and OER would have really proved that program well. Students really complained about having to pay for McGraw-Hill Connect. They didn't find that it was engaging. And when you look at like what was in the face-to-face class, all the little special nuggets of greatness that was happening in those courses, translating that over into the online learning environment was just a challenge to like capture all of that. And so as a group, we really advocated for creating like an OER resource for that program. But what as we took that journey, what we found was the partnership with the um, publisher company, there was some sort of benefit to the university because it was such a large program that when we started actually finding momentum to move on this and organizing it, and everyone was just so excited about it, what stopped it was, I don't know if the right word is, but the kickback that the university got from being in partnership with that publisher company, right? And part of their funding for their department that was paying for positions happened to be funded because of that relationship that we couldn't there it stopped us, and I was just like, I don't even know where to go from here. Like, what do you do in those instances, right? The students want it, the faculty want it, it's for the best of all parties involved except for this one small piece that ended up just taking over. And I don't know, that was really frustrating.
And I actually think I love that you're bringing this up because this is where, so there's all these inclusive access and equitable access programs, and a lot of colleges are making money off of them. They're making money right this second.
Hmm.
What happens when, again, in our advocacy, because I'm big on this, you show them that they actually, the long-term moneymaker is retention. They
That's
care
very,
about that, they care about students. They care about numbers. They care about they care about the money. I get it. They're the business people. But if we can start pulling data showing that OER is actually increasing increasing retention and dropping DFW rates, great. And if it's not, how can we use it to change that? How can we show how can we collect data to guide us in our work in OER so that when we come to administration, we go, yeah, you're getting this kickback right now, but like long term, you could be killing it in enrollment and you're not. Your choice.
yeah, that's a good thought.
And that's right. Like I think it's the difference between showing people long-term thinking and short-term thinking. And right now, I do think personal bias, I do think we have a little bit of a problem with short-term thinking. And on an administrative level, because our country right now, quite frankly, is, we're having a lot of grants pulled back and education's not highly funded. Colorado has a $2.4 billion deficit they had to contend with. So it it's not great. I'm not happy, but also it's just right now. And I'm not saying maybe it won't be, maybe it'll be like this forever, but I'm going to still keep advocating and charging forward with the idea that in 5 years, maybe it'll be different.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have more money.
Yeah, hopefully so. Anyways, thank you. I really appreciate your questions you're asking. Like I said, I'm new to Colorado. I'm trying to find my new big thing, right?
Yep.
So I'm kind of in transition here. But this has always been a topic and a passion of mine. So, um, anyways, thank you.
I appreciate you, Kristen. And again, if you ever reach out to me, I've gotten the opportunity to meet people across the state. So if you ever are interested in meeting more people in your wheelhouse, just extending that community right there. I know that other people in this room right now are all people I've met on different capacities in different ways. And I think this work is, again, super important. I think it connects to a lot. And I think it goes to this whole idea of an ecosystem. I can wake up tomorrow and let's not say we could wake up tomorrow and we could start killing all of a certain mosquitoes. And then when the mosquitoes are gone, then something else dies. And then when something else dies, the plants aren't properly getting taken care of, so they stop flowering, so there's no bees. Ecosystems are delicate, but also resilient. When we remove pieces that maybe harm the ecosystem or add pieces that harm the ecosystem, it's about how do we move forward? How do we keep it resilient? But that's together. And even to Kristen's point, she's in a brand new state. She's got to meet people again. But this work doesn't happen in a vacuum, and it should not be happening just one person forging ahead. I know that we need credit for our raises and our tenure promotions and all these different things. But OER happens together. It's a community. It's actually one of the largest reasons I was drawn to this work. And that's why if we want to sustain the ecosystem, we have to share responsibility, collaborate, and renew as often as we can. It's not this I advocate, it's we transform. And I know I'm using a lot of very and I'm using a lot of fluffy words, but I really truly do believe in this. It's not just me out here, and quite frankly, if I'd been the only one out here, I'm not sure how much we would have accomplished. But when I joined the council, it was an entire group of people who were working together with each of their different skill sets, the advocacy team. When I joined my OER committee here at ACC, again, getting that team together, thinking all the different pieces. Now, as I go out into the state, into the nation, and I go, hey, this is what you need to do. I'm just casting my net wider. I'm asking for more people to help shoulder the burden and the benefit of pushing this work forward. Because I can't lift a car, but I could get 20 people together and we could lift a car together probably. I don't really know if that's proper analogy or not, but I know you understand my meaning. So I just want to thank you because I do believe the future is open and we're building it together. I want you to stay connected, stay inspired, and stay curious because my one thing is that I am available. If you want to reach out to me, I have an email. I'll throw it in the chat. If you ever just want to, if you need an ear or you need to find out if someone's doing the work out there and you want to meet other people who could work with you. There are many, many, many options out there, and I am more than happy to really encourage everyone. And yes, Ray, I'll be happy to hear from you. 100%. And that is it as of right now. So I want to make sure that there is time for questions in case you have any. Very welcome, Amy and Kristen. Thank you. Alrighty. Well, if there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. If I can figure out how.